Hello everybody, and welcome to the AXA Research Fund's annual ceremony. My name is Greg Foote. I'm a science communicator. That means that I present science content on TV, on YouTube, and on stage. And I'm very, very passionate about good science communication. For the benefit of science itself, for the benefit of the research community, and for the benefit of the general public. And that's why I'm so interested in the AXA Research Fund, and why I was genuinely delighted to be involved in making a series of online films last year that brought to life 7 of the fascinating AXA research projects. They're on YouTube. If you want to take a look, they're called the AXA Research Files. Check them out sometime. Now, the AXA Research Fund plays a valuable role in enabling a global community of researchers to pursue their work, boosting the science of the risks that affect us all across the categories of life, socioeconomic, and environment. Later this morning, we'll be revealing the new grantees and learning more about their brilliant projects, with a special focus on the challenges and changes that the data revolution brings to their work. But first, to open this event, it's my pleasure to welcome the AXA CEO and Chairman, Henri de Castries.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here for many reasons. The first one being, of course, that you, the members of the scientific board, the researchers, some of our partners, some people of the AXA teams are here in the room with a lot of things to say. The second reason is that, of course, it's a particular pleasure to be here for the 8th consecutive time, seeing the initiative we took 8 years ago, deciding under, I would say, a big cloud of skepticism coming from everywhere, as it is usual in this country when you decide to start something new. It's particularly pleasant to see this initiative having prospered, developed, and played a useful role for the society in general. There is an additional reason to be happy. It's the fact that I will be introducing the session, but it will be closed by my successor, Thomas Buberl, who from now on will be with Denis Duverne, who is going to be the next chairman of AXA, looking at you with, I'm convinced, the same interest and the same passion as I've been doing it over the last 8 years. If we look back, and Professor Kirkwood in a few minutes will share with you what the activity of the fund has been in 2015, but if we look back over these 8 years, the achievements have been great, and they go well beyond the numbers. The numbers themselves are pretty interesting. We have spent nearly 150 million euros, and you see it's a big commitment. It's also a long-term one, and Thomas will let you know if he intends to continue. Big question mark. It's a big amount, but I think it has been very well used because it has enabled the scientific board to fund nearly 270 institutions worldwide in 33 countries, so it's really a global research fund. And the ways the fund has been interacting with the research community has been a flexible one, which I think is something very important in today's world, because you cannot see the world changing at a very rapid pace, in very different forms, and have very rigid and inflexible processes or actions. I think one of the big virtues of the scientific board, beyond the outstanding quality of its members, has been this ability to be pragmatic in the way we have interacted, going from chairs to financing specific projects. There are 2 things about which I'm happy in the recent years. It's to have seen that a significant portion of the efforts has been devoted to two topics which are very close to the hearts of any insurer and any AXA person in this room. The first one is climate change. We've all seen with a lot of satisfaction the progresses which have been made as part of COP21. And I think we can be proud to say that in this big, difficult, but at the end of the day positive construction, AXA and the Research Fund have been able to contribute a little brick to facilitate the construction of the whole house. What we have done to finance some researchers investigating the climate issues has been helpful, has helped facilitate the dialogue, crystallize some initiatives around COP21, and we intend to keep doing it. We are going in the next years to fund, I think, 35 million of additional projects, research projects in that field. Why do we do it? It's not a sort of selfish interest as insurers. You all know that we do not own the research produced. It's a funding which leaves the researchers totally independent, but we think that it's vital for the future of our societies. And if, building on our expertise, on our knowledge, build on our very, very deep conviction that this is essential, we can help, we are happy to do it. So climate change is one thing. The second thing where we are happy to see new projects emerging is all what is centered around data. It's clear that one of the key aspects of the technological revolution we are seeing is what's surrounding this emergence of a new world where data is going to play a role it never played before in mankind's history. It has very deep technological implications. It has also very deep philosophical implications. And if we can help understand better both, to give us, if not a roadmap, at least a compass as a society to understand how we can use this evolution to do better things for the society in general, I think we will have usefully contributed. So all these things are positive. I think the program you have this morning is going to be pretty exciting because Professor Kirkwood, whom I would like to really officially thank for his passionate contribution to the scientific board. Tom, I think without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So you deserve, I think, a special thank from all the people who are in this room. So Tom is going to share with us what has been done in 2015 and what the board is in the process of deciding. But we will also have the opportunity to listen to Professor Lessig, who is going to share with us some of the new things he's doing. And we will have the opportunity to listen to some of the researchers who are going to share with us some of their projects. So this is the program of the morning. I think I've already spoken for too long, but I wanted to thank all of you, I mean, the members of the scientific board, the researchers, and all the partners and AXA people involved in this effort. I think it's something we can collectively be proud of, and I think it's something we really need to carry forward because it's a great initiative, and great initiatives need to become even greater. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And now Professor Kirkwood is going to follow.
Thank you very much, Henri. It's my great honor to share with you, on behalf of all of the members of the Scientific Board, an overview of the AXA Research Fund achievements over the last year, and it has been a very exciting year. Each year becomes more and more exciting. It's been an intense year, and a year which has been dedicated to pursuing new partnerships with academic institutions of excellence around the world. a year that's been dedicated to identifying innovative research projects to boost the understanding and management of risks that represent the biggest challenges facing our world and its communities. It's been a year dedicated to supporting the outreach of our funded researchers to share their knowledge for the benefit of society. And it's also been a year dedicated to welcoming new people, new academic partners, and also new members of the scientific board, new operational partners for our selection, for the management and dissemination efforts, and a new director at the AXA Research Fund. Last summer, Ulrike Decoene took over this role, and she has brought great insight and dynamism for the further evolution and the future of the AXA Research Fund. Over the last year, the Research Office has continued its magnificent efforts to refine the assessment and selection process, and in partnership with the European Science Foundation, this had led to the identification of 44 outstanding projects that we will hear about shortly. In the process, we've chosen to support some really exciting, innovative projects where the use of data promises not only new ways to carry out the science, but also opens up new research questions that can be addressed. This has come to be known as the fourth industrial revolution, and by accessing fresh depths of knowledge about risks, it'll be the focus not only of today's events, but will receive increasing attention in our future efforts. In parallel, we've been developing partnerships in new territories in order to cover global risks and accelerate research in those parts of the world where some of these risks are actually happening and when fresh research excellence is emerging. And this has taken the form of road shows in Asia, in Latin America and Africa. We have new partnerships in the United Arab Emirates and a new one in South Africa as well. And the scientific board has evolved. We had our board meeting yesterday where we were able to sort of welcome new members to the board. We need to thank some members who are departing the board at the moment, so I'd particularly like to acknowledge the outstanding contributions of Valérie Masson-Delmotte, who was very instrumental in the climate discussions here in Paris last year, to Alessandra Casella, from these two from the academic community, to Anne-Juliette Hermont and Lucie Talesson from AXA. So we really, really appreciate and will miss the contributions from these outstanding individuals. The new members of the board from the academic community, we welcome Bina Agarwal, who's Professor of Developmental Economics and Environment at the University of Manchester and divides her time between Manchester and Delhi in India. Olivier Boucher, Research Director at CNRS, working at the Laboratoire de Météorologie Dynamique of UPMC Polytechnic, and Deborah Roberts, who established and currently heads the Environmental Planning and Climate Protection Unit of the eThekwini municipality in Durban, South Africa. And from the AXA side, we welcome Stéphane Guinet, founder and chief executive of CAMET, AXA's Insurtech incubator, Reginald Henri, who heads operational excellence and procurement, and Christian Thimann, AXA Group Head of Strategy, Sustainability and Public Affairs, who's a member of AXA's executive group. The new members bring rich and complementary perspectives on the challenges and needs for science, as well as new expertise when it comes to assessing innovation and usefulness to society. So now let's move on to the contribution of grantees to the public debate, which has also seen spectacular acceleration over the last year. In addition to sharing their discoveries with the research community through the standard routes, publications in leading scientific journals and conferences, AXA grantees have been increasingly engaged with non-scientific audiences with support from the fund team, their institutions and communications partners. And this has ranged from TED events to exhibitions, interviews, articles in the media, masterclasses, to going viral on YouTube and growing use of other social media. It's been particularly good to observe the increasing appetite within the AXA community of societal ambassadors to promote awareness of the work supported by the fund. The involvement of AXA grantees and alumni in the climate change debate around COP21 has been particularly rich, and we've seen sort of some really exciting developments emerge from this activity. In the field of communication, new topics emerge, such as the future of food, a major concern in the world of tomorrow. In partnership with National Geographic, we've seen 3 grantees help share their knowledge on how to better prevent individual and collective risks related to food, resources, and practices. Researcher engagement can actually be very creative, as was proven in the AXA research files, and these were animated by Greg today, where the sharing of science risk has been shown to be both fun and extremely insightful. The outreach effort is something there's a real commitment to develop and take further forward to secure a more diverse, agile, sort of an useful to society set of contributions from AXA grantees to increase awareness across society of issues around risk. Now, I want to close by saying a few further words of appreciation. I would like to acknowledge our community of grantees, nearly 500 in total, quite a number of whom are here today. The dedication and commitment of this vibrant community is a chance for society collectively and for each of us individually to have a better grasp on the shape of our futures. And we should really be grateful for them for this. I want in particular, though, to thank Henri de Castries for the vision, leadership, and support that he has given personally to creating the remarkable adventure that is the AXA Research Fund. The fund is a unique organization, and with each year of accumulating experience, I think its uniqueness is becoming more and more obvious. It's living proof that a highly successful business like AXA can deliver something to the world in which it operates that complements its core business and brings about real change for the better. So I think all of us on the scientific board have really felt excited and proud to be a part of this adventure. So thank you, Henri. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to be able to work with you towards realizing this vision. Now, because images are worth thousands of words, we're going to watch a short video presenting some of the fund's activities over the last year. So 2015 at a glance. Impressive, isn't it? It almost makes me feel like a rock star.
You can take a seat. Thank you very much, Henri, as well. Now it's time to move on to our newly granted researchers. And let's start with the postdoctorates. Postdoctorate fellows are the lifeblood of the science research world. Like explorers, their fields of research see them crisscrossing the globe, from laboratories in Kenya to storms in the Arctic and reefs in the Coral Sea. And as their research progresses through their findings, publications, and the global network of science events and conferences, they contribute to the global bank of knowledge. Now, during the next few minutes, each of their names and research projects are going to come up behind me. There are 27 new postdoctorates selected in 2015. We're not going to sit here and watch them all. One name that's about to appear up there is Ulrike Decoene, and Ulrike is with us today, and she's going to come up and join me and have a little chat. Ulrike, please come up. Ulrike is French. She started her postdoctorate in September at the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton, UK, which is just down the road from me. Ulrike's work looks at how changes in ocean currents can affect atmospheric conditions, particularly producing extreme weather events, as she is, that can result in wide-scale economic and human loss. And in a first study of its kind, Ulrike has established a link suggesting that the cold North Atlantic ocean temperature drove the highest temperatures ever recorded in Central Europe during the summer of 2015. Crucial work that will no doubt influence how we can predict these weather patterns and how we can develop models to mitigate the associated risks. Let me grab this. This is for you. So, what does your recent selection by the AXA Research Fund mean to you and the scope of your work?
So being able to improve weather forecasts is indeed of utmost importance in order to reduce and mitigate the risks associated with weather extremes that are caused by natural and man-made hazards. And we know that with climate change, weather extremes like floods or heat waves are expected to be more severe and more frequent. But it's really important to know which regions are the most likely to be affected by weather extremes and what are the precursors of this extreme within the ocean and within the atmosphere. And for me, I think that working on this topic is extremely interesting because my research could contribute towards reducing the impacts of those extremes and save lives, which is, I think, the main focus of insurance industries like AXA and decision makers. So I'm very grateful I've been awarded this fellowship by the AXA Research Fund because I think it's quite a unique opportunity for me to directly communicate about my research and as well to build a bridge between the scientific community I'm working with and decision makers and practitioners that could eventually apply our science to effective decision making. And during the next 2 years, and in the future as well, I would like to use this new connection that I've created with AXA to disseminate our scientific outcomes in a timely and accessible manner that responds to the needs of policymakers and practitioners. And I would like to as well be in contact with the end users of our research.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that wraps it all up. Ulrike, please give her a huge round of applause. Thanks for coming up and chatting to me. So the fireworks show continues behind me. Lots of topics, universities, and fellows. If you missed any of them, you can read about them in one of these booklets that you should all have, or you can pick one up on the way out. And of course, there are more details of all the grantees on the AXA website. Now, we are very fortunate that several of these new postdocs, representatives from that front line of the global community of nearly 500 researchers, have managed to escape from their labs and join us here today. Please stand up, any postdocs that are with us. I think there are a bunch. Please stand, and everyone, give them a huge round of applause. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the presentation of some of the other research projects selected by the AXA Research Fund's Scientific Board. First up, the category of environmental risks. The first is a joint research initiative on floods, with ear steer and experts from the AXA Global Property and Casualty business lines. And the second is a research chair on sand and dust storms. We will review them both in a very short while in the context of today's theme of data, because both of them use data in a very intriguing way. Understanding more about floods or sandstorms not only leads us to better management of environmental risks around food production and human settlements, for example, but it can also have a direct impact on health too, which brings us nicely to review the selection of health-related risks and projects in the life risks category. In addition to the 9 brilliant young postdoctorates that we've headlined so far, the AXA Research Fund's Scientific Board has had the chance to select other great research projects. Now, it's a great pleasure for us to present to 2 AXA Awards and 3 research chairs. Before we do that, how do these grants work? So, AXA Awards first. Each year, the AXA Advisory Board selects the research topics that they feel are of greatest importance. And those are the topics that they look to for potential AXA awards. Then the AXA Research Fund then asks the search committee of academic experts to find and nominate leading researchers in those fields. And from that shortlist, the AXA Scientific Board then make their award selections. Did you get that? There will be a test afterwards. Next, the AXA chairs. These are for significant long-term research projects. The chairs are selected by at least 3 recognised independent reviewers and awarded to projects that are led by some of the best senior international professors in their field. And this lasting and significant support from AXA creates intellectual space for really innovative and meaningful work. Okay. Breathe. So, to introduce these research projects, let's take a look at some short videos. Now, we're deliberately skipping one of the projects, and that's the AXA chair led by Professor Helen Colquhoun on the prediction and prevention of diabetes, because Helen is here with us today, and she's going to come up and join me later about the ways in which access to health data was instrumental to her research later. So let's have a look.
How do identity-related concerns affect our health behaviours? Philosophized through cutting-edge techniques, Professor Ito will develop a comprehensive catalogue of neural networks and of their functions. His findings will help address health and societal challenges, such as neurodegenerative diseases and addictions.
See what I mean? Amazing. Like, the portfolio is just brilliant this year. Okay, let's congratulate the researchers that we've just seen. So one at a time, our first AXA Award researcher is Fabrice Etelet, who works on social identity and health behaviours at the Paris School of Economics. Fabrice, stand up. This is your moment. Huge round of applause. Thank you. The second is Sarah Pressman, working on happiness and its links to stress and therefore health. She couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, but I strongly advise that you go and check out her TED Talk on the subject, because it's brilliant. So, the AXA Research Chairs, let's congratulate Professor Kei Ito. He'll soon be moving from the University of Tokyo to the University of Cologne, where he will continue his intriguing research on the brain, its structure, its function, and its development. Professor Kei Ito, are you here? Yeah, yes. Round of applause. And congratulations to Professor Simon Filetreau, whose research will be carried out at the INSERM and Hôpital des Enfants Malades de Necker. Not bad pronunciation. Not good either. His work aims to better understand the determinants of inflammatory diseases, focusing on the immune systems. Simon, are you here? Yeah. Congratulations to all of you. Right, time for us to move on to the category of socio-economic risks. Now, Professor Alessandra Casella is going to guide us through this. Alessandra has been a member of the AXA Research Fund Scientific Board for several years, and she's very involved in the grantee selection process. Until yesterday, that is. Yesterday was her last day on the scientific board, and we'd be very sad to see you go. But over to you.
Thank you, Greg. So I'm here to convey to you in 3 minutes flat all the richness and the excitement of the activities of the research fund as I saw them from my seat on the board. So where else do you think I could learn about the application of quantum physics to cryptography as a way of keeping our data safe on the computer? Or where else could I learn in the same day about liquid democracy, which is one of these platforms for deliberations, online deliberations? And again, on various ways in which we can try to keep our data safe when we're using the cloud more and more. So again, you see these two projects related to data analysis. The first one on quantum physics and cryptography is the AXA chair given to Professor Antonio Assin. The second one on deliberative platforms and safety on the cloud is an AXA chair for Brian Ford. In the same day, another topic was discussed by the board, and it was closer to me. I'm an economist myself. And this was the project by Bernard Dumas, our chair on financial markets in 2015, on building agent-based models, studying the dynamics of financial systems. These agent-based models use simulations and numerical analysis to incorporate factors that we know are very important but cannot be analyzed with the standard analytical tools of conventional models. In particular, what happens when you have heterogeneous expectations and beliefs. So the idea is to move forward with agent-based simulations. This is for the chairs alone, and remember, this was one specific day on the AXA Scientific Board. When we look at projects themselves, and so we look at the awards and the Outlook Award, which are closer to topics on the border between different fields. We gave an award, for example, for the study of the fragility of early warning systems for natural disasters, for example, tornado, hurricanes. This is an award that went to William Donner, who, by the way, is here today, why some early warning systems failed, especially looking at southern Texas. But we also gave an award to the politics and the sociology of international finance. And this went to Jeffrey Schweroth. We also gave an Outlook Award. Our Outlook Awards are very exciting too, because they really look at innovative ways of communicating science. I'm thinking about the award that went to Sophie Harmons about communicating the risk of HIV infection and the risk involved in the treatment, the challenges involved in the treatment of HIV infection. And Sophie is working on a documentary that will report the experiences of 4 Tanzanian women on this, and also working on 2 BD, 2 graphic novels, again addressing the same topic. So you see the clear effort that the AXA Research Fund is putting through the choice of its researchers in communicating effectively, in developing the frontier of science and then communicating it. So these 2 facets of the effort of the fund. There was also a joint research initiative that was funded in 2015 under the socio-economic risk, and that went to the challenge of the actuarial challenge posed by individual consumers bundling different insurance contracts. And this is a joint research initiative between UCL and AXA Belgium. So I think I will now turn it over again to a short film that will tell us will give us again information about these awards. The 2 data chairs will be discussed further later, so they will not be in the film. Please.
People affected.
I believe that Bernard Dumas, Sophie Harmons, and William Donner are with us today. If you can please stand up.
Thank you again. Moving on to today's core theme of the whole event, and that is data. Now, perhaps more than any other factor, data has the potential to transform scientific research across its entire spectrum. Very simply, there is no science without data, and there is no data without research. Or, if you'll forgive me because I'm a Brit, as Sherlock Holmes would put it to his sidekick Watson, it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist the facts to suit theories instead of the theories to suit facts. We're in for a treat today, as our keynote speaker, talking all about the subject of data, is Lawrence Lessig. Now, Lawrence is the kind of Renaissance man any one of us in this room would be very happy to find ourselves sat next to on a long-haul flight. He's an American academic, an attorney, a political activist, and he serves on the board of the AXA Research Fund. Oh, and if that is not enough, Scientific American named him amongst their top 50 visionaries. So there are few people better equipped to talk to us about the issues, implications, and complexities of data, issues that are increasingly impacting on our lives in the digital age. Please join me in welcoming Lawrence to the stage.
Thank you so much. I'm honored for the opportunity to address you. I'm saying this because I'm trying to fill in time as I turn the technology on. And here we're alive, I hope. Yes, great. And I've been incredibly honored to serve on the AXA Research Fund board. For a lawyer, I have to confess that I felt outgunned many times in the conversations with the scientists and those who are actually connected to the real world as opposed to the policy world that I live in, but it has been enormously informative and inspirational to see what true leadership by corporations can provide for the public good. And I came to this skeptical, and I live it and practice it without that skepticism anymore. Now, I've been in this field thinking about technology now for more than 20 years and the way it affects policy. And we recognize, of course, that we're in the middle of a revolution, a technical revolution for some time now. But maybe as a measure of my feeling old, I'd like to step back a bit and think about what we can learn from the mistakes we've made and look ahead to the problems that are likely, given the emergence of data, big data, as a central organizing idea in the context of science. And the particular mistake I'd like to begin with, the mistake that we made without even recognizing we were making it, I think, is related to nanotechnology. And nanotechnology as it connects to the field of legal patents. Now, whenever I say anything about intellectual property, immediately people think I'm going to say something against intellectual property, or I'm going to say that intellectual property is bad. And I want to say that I am not against patents. I'm not even against patents in the context of nanotechnology. But what I want to do is to note a difference that other academics, first Mark Lemley and then Professor Reynolds, have noted about how the way we apply patents in this field could matter. A difference that is unnoticed, I think, by policymakers, but we can see quite clearly if we distinguish the 20th century from the 21st. And if we think about foundational technologies in each of these centuries, how do they relate to the practice of protection? So in the 20th century, the foundational technologies of computers and software and internet and biotechnology, each were born patent-free. Computers, because originally from the military and then from AT&T and IBM's consent decree, were built and developed without patents protecting the core technology that underlay them. Software was, until the 1980s, not even patentable. The internet itself, because developed by the government, TCP/IP was free, and because of Tim, as in Tim Berners-Lee, the World Wide Web was originally built as free. And even biotechnology, of course, DNA as a product of nature was not patentable. The methods that were developed to access and manipulate would have been, but they weren't, because originally, at least, norms and law forbid the great researchers from encumbering these innovations with patents. So the 20th century, all four of these core foundational technologies, the foundation to an extraordinary technical innovation, were patents free, and patents were then built on top of these core free technologies. But in the 21st century, this basic frame has been radically different. We basically have patents all the way down. So in the context of nanotechnology, there has been what has been referred to as the gold rush for patents, building basic building blocks in nanotechnology, covering thousands of patents, even the single carbon nanotube itself having hundreds of patents reading on the very same technology. This patent thicket refers to a problem that Michael Heller has called the problem of the anti-commons, where instead of a resource that everyone can draw on, it's a resource that incredibly no one can draw on because of the number of people who can say no. And he describes the tragedy of the nanotechnology anti-commons as Professor Reynolds put it. An analysis of the nanotechnology patent landscape suggests that nanotechnology gold rush has created an anti-commons in nanomaterials. Patents in nanomaterials are broad, overlapping, and fragmented. Unless action is taken to eliminate the nanotechnology anti-commons, however, transaction and strategic costs may stifle nanotechnology's incredible potential. Now, Professor Reynolds and Mark Lemley's position about the anti-commons in nanotechnology has, of course, skeptics who are not convinced that patents have presented a problem. There are plenty of patentophiles out there. But my point here is different. My point is to think about this difference between the 20th and 21st century and ask this question: did we decide at some point, affirmatively decide at some point to adopt this radical change for how we deal with foundational technologies? Was that chosen? Did anybody even understand what this new premise would do for the opportunity for innovators to build on this fundamental technology? Did somebody say, geez, the 20th century didn't have enough technical innovation, so we've got to change the rules. We have to get more innovation than that sluggish 20th century provided? And obviously, the answer to that question is no. This was the unintended consequence of basically lawyers mucking around with the way innovators do their work, and it's a consequence that no policymaker took time to reflect on before it actually embedded itself in the ecology of nanotechnology. Now, my point is that a better way, when we think about these radical changes of technology, is to step back and to look and ask, does this difference in technology make sense of the existing systems for regulation, and to choose whether to adopt the existing systems or to modify them. And I want to think about that question in particular in the context of data. We've heard a lot in the past couple of years about the extraordinary value of open data projects. Projects where the data is made available to many researchers to use and build upon for their own critical work. Enormous progress to recognizing the value in free data, the value to corporations around the world from the opportunity to take data and turn it into resource and valuable products. And the open access to science movement has begun to teach people about the incredible importance of guaranteeing access to scientific knowledge to people around the world, not just in the rich, information-rich countries like in the West or in the United States. The Public Library of Science has built an extraordinary number of incredibly successful journals that have committed the work of those journals to the public domain through licenses that guarantee permanent access for everyone, everywhere. And the number of journals that are adopting open access principles is going through the roof. And increasingly, people are seeing the value in open data. Here's even a McKinsey report describing how open data unlocks innovation and performance with liquid information, showing how this opportunity complements the commercial process to produce value both for commercial and for research. But this different data that I want to think about today, we can think of as a new kind of data in the field of open data. And I want to think about that new kind of data in the context of health. Because what we're seeing right now, just in the beginning, and over the next 20 years we will see explode, is the amount of technologies devoted to gathering from consumers health data that will automatically be collected and sent to repositories to be studied and used. And not just automatically collected, but self-consciously collected. 23andMe, a private DNA decoding company, has now cornered a huge market in private data about DNA, doing extraordinary research, just raised $150 million, which is 70% of the United States government total budget for personalized medicine. Now, these data will support millions of ways that consumers will collect the data and to make the data usable, to give researchers the opportunity to study how consumers in the field are reacting and experiencing this extraordinary exposure to information. And the sea change in data will affect how research is done. We go from a world of small samples, where scientists depend on tens of observations once or twice a year, to enormous samples, where scientists will have the opportunity to look at tens of thousands of observations every single day. And what this means is these enormous samples will mean data companies will increasingly be in the middle of the project of scientific research around health. Technologists will come to health, as they increasingly are. Data companies will be asked to analyze data in what now unimaginable ways because of their unique connection to consumers and the information consumers voluntarily provide. Google reports that 1 out of every 5 searches is a health-related search, which means there are 2,000 searches per second that Google gets related to health, which they use to inform how consumers are thinking and using health data. Now, these data are encouraging these commercial entities to engage in partnerships with traditional researchers. Google and the Mayo Clinic have worked together to curate health-related facts for people accessing it on the internet. IBM, using its Watson Health Cloud, is working with MD Anderson Cancer Center to treat oncology patients. And Apple, through an open source research kit, has now connected 200,000 participants in just 9 months to collecting data from their Apple Watches to give to researchers to understand how the consumers are experiencing these data. Now, this is an extraordinary potential for science. And more importantly, an extraordinary potential to help those whose data is collected. Because the obvious consequence of this could be radical change in how we understand medicine and treatment. But I want to suggest that, as with nanotechnology, right now we are seeing an unthinking embrace of the existing norm for data that dominates in the law right now. The norm governing ownership of data, which is presumptively owned not by the creators, the people producing the data, but by the collectors of the data. And all of these data then get collected and enter data silos owned by these different technology companies to build ever more efficient platforms for data for each of these companies. Now, it's important to recognize this is a weird counter-trend to how we think about data in lots of contexts of science and commercial life. It's a weird counter-trend to the way medical data is now being shared. The projects to spread clinical data sharing in the United States with the National Academy of Medicine, the National Institutes of Health, Department of Health and Human Services, all require data sharing of clinical studies, as does the Wellcome Trust and the European Medicines Agency of the EU. And the same with the open access to scientific data, which increasingly is becoming the norm of researchers as they make and produce more data accessible across the web. But what follows naturally from this practice of owning the data you collect, this practice of the pre-big data age, is that The rule is if you collect it, then it's yours. And my suggestion is that as with nanotechnology, what we should be asking is, does this practice make sense? Does big data plus these monopoly business models produce, in fact, poor data for all of us? Now, there's obvious solutions to this problem. The solutions are to make these data presumptively shareable. If we collect them, then you make it available, anonymized, eventually, cleanly, and completely secured, so that many can invent and innovate with the data collected from millions. That's, for example, the practice that's being followed by Sage Bionetworks. Right now, Sage is running 7 trials with more than 100,000 participants. And each of these participants is giving the power to control what's done with their data. They have access to the data, they have information how it's being used, and they have the freedom to share it with other researchers if they so choose. 75% of the 100,000 participants opted into a regime where their data is shared with others who pass certain standards for qualification to share data. And these other researchers then everywhere have the ability to discover and to invent on top of these collected data. Now, this alternative is clear, an alternative to the winner-take-all economies we see the internet producing with fewer and fewer competitors, where all research would be conditioned on access through these few, where research on this data depends on getting permission from these few to get access to the internet. And my suggestion to the data, and my suggestion is that if the internet has taught us anything, it has taught us that many innovators are better than few. And the ability to block, to discriminates against the new. Because think of the very architecture of the internet. The internet's architecture was what they call simple, or some said stupid. Stupid because it couldn't discriminate against who wanted to use the internet for what purpose. And the consequence of that design, as my colleague Barbara von Schewick put it, is an architecture that enabled a certain kind of innovation. Think about the great innovations in the history of the internet. A browser built by a kid at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. Hotmail, the first browser internet client developed by an Indian immigrant. ICQ, the first peer-to-peer messaging service developed by an Israeli. Google, Napster, YouTube, all developed by people under the age of 30. Kazaa and Skype, developed by a Dane and Swede. Facebook, developed by Harvard dropouts. Reddit, developed by Stanford dropouts. Twitter, developed by a guy under 30. What unites all of these innovations? They are all produced by kids, dropouts, and non-Americans. They are all produced by outsiders. Outsiders to the dominant corporations that controlled access to the technology at the time, because the right to innovate was held in common. And the architectures to assure competition built into the architecture of the internet produced a better environment for creativity than architectures of control, or at least, maybe, right? Because I'm not here to offer an answer about how we should think about access to consumer-collected big data. What I'm saying is we have to ask these questions about what the rules should be, and to ask these questions now before the future gets codified in the business models of these corporations, because the alternatives then will be unimaginable. Our job is to make unimaginable these alternatives, to ask the questions that no one's interest is to ask. No one, except perhaps everyone, no one except perhaps the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you. so interesting. I'm sure that's... Can you hear me? Yeah. Rapturous applause. That was so interesting on so many levels. I didn't realise that there are 2,000 searches every second on health-related things on Google. It raises all sorts of questions about ownership and openness that we're going to be addressing and investigating throughout the afternoon. Now, it's time to welcome someone else onto the stage to give her perspective on our subject of data. Veronique Weill is the Chief Operating Officer of the AXA Group and also a member of the Management Committee. I also know that she is a very passionate member of the AXA Research Fund's Scientific Board as well. Veronique, over to you.
Very much. It's very difficult to speak just after what we heard from Lawrence, so it's with a lot of humility that I'm coming to you and tell you and try to explain how we're dealing with data at AXA. I think at the Scientific Board, as Lawrence said, we're very privileged because we have been able to look at opportunities that data is bringing and also to look at how we should deal with that in a very ethical and with a lot of respect. So what we have is we have this enormous amount of data which is becoming available, and this will definitely help us to better understand and measure the risk. And we are really very proud to see that the AXA Research Fund is now increasing its commitment and the level of research is dedicating to that subject. In fact, the data revolution is really creating a total new business environment. We were always using data, but they were scarce and expensive. Now, computers, technology, data scientists, connected devices enable us to have more data, to lower the cost of the usage of data, to lower the barriers to entry, and even to avoid all the barriers to stay. So what we need at AXA is we need to take that opportunity, and we believe that we have just scratched the surface. We believe that we can use a lot of data. The amount of data available is unbelievable, using structured data, unstructured data, using many data that we had in the past about the customers, but we were not able to structure them in the right way. The second point, it's real time. So we move from static data to real-time data, and we can improve the knowledge of the customer in order to analyze, price the risk, anticipate, and better protect our customers. That's what we want to do at AXA. But there is something that we never compromised, is the fact that we will do that in a very ethical and being very responsible about the data of our customers. This is what is really at the core of our business. This is how we will differentiate ourselves with the competition. We will never be a data broker, and we'll be always very careful about the usage of data, and we always make sure that we have a full alignment of interest between the consumers, between our customers, between AXA and with the regulators. That's how we believe that at AXA we differentiate ourselves vis-à-vis the competitors. So what do we want to do with the amount of data that are available to us? We want to make sure that we are able to better understand, to better analyze, to better price the risk, but also to personalize the offer and services that we will be able to offer to customers. And that's why it's so important to foster the collaboration between researchers and between the people at AXA and the business we are driving. We are very humble, and I think that society and leaders need always to recognize that they don't know everything. And with the acceleration of data in the world, with the innovation going quicker and accelerating in a speed that has never been seen before, it would be a big mistake for AXA and his leadership team to believe that they know everything. So we're developing teams dealing with data, and we will hear more from them later on. But what we really want to make sure is that we are sharing together our ambition and that we are really fostering more cooperations between our researcher and the world at AXA. We can benefit from each other, and it will always put us in a very humble position to listen and to learn more. That's how at AXA we will continue to be a leader in the business, that we will be always dealing with the risk for our customers, that we'll be able to protect it in a very ethical way. So I strongly believe that bringing together researchers and experts are fostering more proximity between the two worlds, and this collaboration between people at AXA and researchers who are dedicating their life to these issues will make us a better company, but it will help us also to better protect our society and to be even more responsible in the way we are conducting our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronique. Thank you. Now, it's clear that data can widen our science horizons. It can open up huge new possibilities for research. And to explain just how it did that for their research, I'd like to welcome the key people from 2 different research projects that I've mentioned during the category of environmental risk earlier. So, can I please welcome up Carlos, Simon, and Vazken to the stage? Now, we're going to look at Carlos's work first. Carlos is currently at the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York, and from October, he will be the AXA Chair at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, which sounds awesome. Carlos's research subject is sand and dust storms, but before we chat, let's just have a quick look at a video that gives us an overview of his research.
Sand and dust storms are a serious threat for life, health, property, environment and economy, particularly in emerging countries. Dr. Pr Lawrence's multidisciplinary program aims to better understand, assess and predict the adverse effect of sand and dust storms, ultimately leading to cutting-edge solutions and adaptation measures to reduce their impacts and costs.
I chatted to Carlos a lot yesterday because this is very, very interesting. But let's spend a minute on the cutting-edge solutions that you talk about. Now, I understand that your work involves big data that we've heard about to give an integrated perspective on weather, health, and cost, and that you get to use supercomputing, which, yeah, is an amazing phrase. So first of all, tell us about supercomputing and also this integrated approach.
So, you know, right, we cannot control the weather. We cannot control, to a very large extent, either sand and dust storms, which is an extreme meteorological phenomena. But what we can do is to try to improve our prediction ability in order to mitigate potential negative impacts, reduce financial losses, and eventually save lives. So improving these forecasts, in fact, is not only a scientific challenge, it's also a big data and supercomputing one. Climate predictions, weather forecasts, air quality forecasts, in fact, are one of the original big data problems and supercomputing problems that we had in the history of science. So these models require what we call in big data the 3 V's, so volume, velocity, and so what we rely upon is in increasingly complex numerical models. In order to run these numerical models, we need thousands of microprocessors running in parallel, and this is the definition of a supercomputer. At the same time, we rely upon a large variety of near real-time observations coming from satellites, in situ networks, that we need to gather, process, and assimilate in order to improve these models. So this has been the core business of the field during the last years, and it still remains a challenge in the context of big data as the volumes of data are ever increasing. The resolution of our models have to increase. But I would identify other emerging opportunities and very interesting opportunities for our domain, which are related to the use of non-environmental information. For example, in the context of health, we need to transition from the concept of physical forecast, meaning forecasting precipitation, atmospheric composition, temperature, winds, into what I would call more societal or risk forecasts. So, for example, in the field of health, we need to combine this environmental information with proxies or data on vulnerability and exposure of the population in order to tailor our forecast in these kind of specific sectors. I've been working on the relationship of sun and dust storms and meningitis epidemics in the Sahel. And one of the problems that we have in order to anticipate these epidemics, which is one of the things that we have been looking at with the World Health Organization, is that we don't have near real-time information on the immunity of the population, on the level of carriage of the bacteria. So when this information becomes available in near real time, this could tremendously impact the way we can predict those epidemics. And there are many other applications besides health in my domain related to impacts on agriculture, energy production, and transportation, air and ground transportation. So.
It's a massive field with a lot of potential. It's really, really interesting. Thank you, Carlos. Now to Simon from AXA and Vasken from EASTEER. They're undergoing a joint research project looking at the forecasting of floods and potentially flooded areas. Let's first have a look at a short video to introduce your work.
Flooding is a chronic natural hazard with a very large impact worldwide, claiming many lives.
So, Vasken, I'm really interested in how you use data in your work in flood prediction. So can you tell us a little bit more about the whole process?
So, first of all, I'm a hydrologist, and we are a kind of strange combination because Simon here belongs to a race of people. They are called actuarians, and that's perhaps the first time that hydrologists and actuarians are introduced and forced to work with each other. I hope it won't be the last time. And actuarians like data, but hydrologists like data a lot too, because modeling the response of natural catchments is such a difficult thing that we need to build models that need to be trained, and to be trained they need a huge amount of data. And now, as far as our project with Simon, what we want to do is to do a major improvement in the forecasting of floods. We know to forecast, to some extent, floods, but what we want to do, we want to now be able to address the extent, the spatial extent of flooding, and not only tell to people, hey, 200 cubic meters per second is coming, but we want to be able to tell the firefighters, to all those in charge of saving lives, hey, this precise area will be covered by water, and this is where you need to rush, and this is where you need to warn people. That's what we want to do. And to do that, we are going to make use of all possible data, and especially data from topographic data, huge database, LIDAR, and so on. And also the last thing for which we are very interested to work with AXA is we want to address also the validation of our models. You know, scientists, when they come in front of you, say, my models are perfect, and they're always they provide always great results. But in fact, we know, this is a secret, that our models are not perfect. Our models, because we are modeling such a complex environment, and we want to be able to try to validate, to see when we have been right, when we have been wrong, because that's when we know when we are wrong, that we can improve the model. And that's what we want to do with Simon, and use possibly to work in cooperation to use the knowledge from AXA clients in order to validate and to improve the models ultimately.
Well, let's talk about the partnership, Simon, if I can. How has enabling together helped you achieve more than you would if it was just two separate groups?
So, well, At AXA, we have a lot of data of claims data that we have been storing them for many years. So for flood, we have 100,000 of individual flood claims stored at AXA, and especially we are using the geocoding, the localization of those claims. They are very precise geocoding. So we are able to challenge the modeling performed by Vasken. I would say with a precision down to meters, we assess the accuracy of the flood footprint that are developed by Vasken. So the target is that for the next coming flood, we would be able to say which house will be flooded, with which intensity and which will not. So obviously working with Vasken and Irstea in this partnership will help us to alert our clients with tailor-made messages, but also to improve our operational excellence by being able to monitor live the cost of flooding, to do better claims management, and obviously to have some better clients follow-up.
Thank you. Well, I think that's very clear what it's bringing to both parties, and a very good example of one of those partnerships. Thank you all to all three of you. Please give them a huge round of applause. They go back. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Vasken. Thank you, Simon. Thanks. So I'd like to welcome up a third grantee, this time from the life risks category. I mentioned her earlier. Please welcome Helen Colquhoun, whose crucial work concerns diabetes, which is, of course, is a disease that's seeing exponential growth on a global scale. Just while we're getting settled in, let's have a look at a short video on Helen's work.
Transforming risk prediction in diabetes is Professor Colquhoun's objective. She will develop algorithms based on electronic health records, stimulating advances in predictive and personalised medicine. Her findings will provide a basis to develop digital tools for individual and collective preventive strategies in diabetes and other chronic diseases.
Well, it's very good to meet you, Helen. Access to data is obviously very, very important in your research. As Lawrence introduced us to earlier, as we're going to discuss more, I'm very interested in the impact of data policy and legislation. How do you go about managing the sharing of that crucial information? Because all the stakeholders, you've got researchers, you've got healthcare professionals, you've got patients. How do you juggle all that?
Okay, so I think there's two components to that question. One is data access and the source of data, and then the other aspect is data sharing, results sharing, and knowledge transfer. So with respect to data access, we are very fortunate in Scotland, where I'm now working, to have very extensive electronic healthcare record systems. We have, alongside those systems, a very well worked through data governance and data accessing series of mechanisms with national data safe havens. We have, as well as electronic healthcare records, in my research program, we also bring together other high-dimensional data generated from our work with patients, collecting samples, genetics, lipidomics, proteomics. And then a third and growing source of data is, which also alludes to something that Professor Lessig was talking about, was the patients themselves as a direct source of contributing data to a joint endeavour. So we have, for example, in Scotland, a portal now where patients can upload their own generated data into their record. So those are a brief mention of some of the complex and wide-ranging sources of data. In terms of data sharing and knowledge transfer, we have, as I say, data safe havens where safe users using safe practices can access data in a safe environment. And this is a very important series of principles underpinning our work. But we also believe very strongly in the need to drive through research into innovations that will benefit those from whom the data come, i.e. the patients themselves. And so one of the reasons that I'm moving to Edinburgh is because we also have a digital health institute there, which we can work with to develop software tools, both for patient use themselves and also for clinician use. As part of knowledge transfer, we also work a lot with policy formulators, using our data to inform guidelines and policy. And then finally, we have a very active program on patient engagement and research. And we've moved from a thinking where you should just inform patients about the results of research to actually trying to think more innovatively about how we directly involve patients much more as research partners. And that is really nascent work now that is being developed. A very important point I would like to convey, lastly, is the idea of a social license, which also Professor Lessig's work alludes to. So we are very careful when we use data to ensure that we are consistent with legislative standards in this area, but we believe very strongly that it's not just about operating within the law in terms of data that matters, but that we also need to work with society to ensure that we generate and maintain what we call a social license. And by that, what we mean is the support of the public and the patients to actually generate and use data wisely and safely and for their benefit. So we believe that that is fundamental to the development and the expansion of the use of data in a positive way.
Well, there you go. Trailblazing. Thanks so much, Helen. It's been really interesting chatting to you as well last night about it more. Everyone, please give Helen a huge round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so data can enable us to carry out research in new ways, but it also opens up new areas of research because the accelerated use of data and technologies raises a lot of new challenges. So science plays a very important role here. Research can help to better inform and protect us, particularly in the crucial area of data sharing. Now, as Alessandra mentioned earlier, 2 of the research chairs selected by the scientific board address these questions of data protection. Firstly, the chair in Information Security and Privacy, which is held by Professor Brian Ford at École Polytechnique Fédérale of Lausanne. And secondly, a chair in Quantum Information Science, held by Professor Antonio Astin at the ICFO Barcelona. So it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Astin to the stage. Please come and join me. And on the way, let's just watch a little short video about both of these chairs.
As the use of data grows exponentially, protecting users' data and privacy is an important and urgent challenge to achieve. Through a holistic approach, where availability, integrity, and privacy of data are inseparable security properties, Professor Ford's research aims at developing a framework for privacy-preserving big data. You will also explore cloud computing emerging risks, aiming for better data protection in a world where cloud computing may become the dominant paradigm. Recent hacking attacks have demonstrated weaknesses in our private information exchanges. Professor Astin's goal is to design a new form of cryptography in which information safety is guaranteed by the laws of quantum physics. Using correlated quantum particle, the protocols will offer a level of security in which existing hacking attacks would become impossible.
So this is mind-bogglingly interesting because it's all about identifying new systems for data security that are essentially driven by the laws of quantum physics, which sounds amazing. Does this mean the end of hacking?
Well, I don't think it's the end of hacking, unfortunately. I mean, hacking is a very difficult problem. What quantum physics offers us is new tools to fight against hacking. So there are some, as it was explained in the video, there are some hacking attacks that can be solved using quantum physics. And the idea why we can do that is because we are now reaching the point where we can control quantum physics. and we can do stuff with quantum physics for information protocols. Like we all see that our information devices, our smartphones, computers become smaller and smaller, and this is because we are able to put information with using atoms, and we know that atoms have to be described using quantum physics. So the idea is, let's say, simple. Since we are reaching the quantum world, let's use the quantum world for our benefit. And what we can see is that by using the properties of quantum physics, we can design schemes that offer a different form of security. So if we want to exchange private information, we can do it in such a way that if someone wants to read this information, this person has to break the laws of quantum physics. Since we believe that the laws of quantum physics are the laws of nature, this gives a different level of security.
Wow, okay. I'm going to go and work on breaking the laws of quantum physics. Thank you so much, Antonio. I really look forward to seeing what you develop. Please give Antonio a huge round of applause. Thank you. So, an upside of these advances with data is that the impact that it's been having on collaboration between different research groups. Now, I'd like to welcome to the floor Dominique Boulier from Science Po Media Lab, and also Philippe Marijean, who's the Chief Data Officer and Head of the Data Innovation Lab from AXA. Since last year, their teams have been working on a joint research initiative, which has been building trust and enabling big data. Now, the AXA Joint Research Initiative is a unique research funding scheme created by the AXA Research Fund to support the collaboration between academic teams and AXA experts. Both parties are working in common areas, so that means that they can provide complementary resources for the benefit of all. Now, it's also important to say that all research supported by the AXA Research Fund is independent. The academic team act independently in the way it carries out its research, and there is no ownership by AXA of the research results. So, Dominique, can you tell me a little bit about the purpose of your research and talk briefly about the beneficial role that collaboration plays within that research?
Well, I started from my previous works on privacy, and I observed that, in fact, the network itself is not, internet, is not it's becoming less and less reliable, contrary to what we may think, because the focus has been put on speed more than on security. And the extension of mobile uses creates so many opportunities for data breaches, as were mentioned before, that we are, from my point of view, entering an era where we must forecast some kind of Fukushima of privacy, of personal data, you know. And so if we want to avoid this kind of situation, we need to build trust, which is rather non-substantial entity, but in fact it's very difficult to build, and it's the core of all the business that is made around data. And that's why I used the model of Lawrence Lessig, because I'm used to be a fan of what he did for so many years. And in fact, when he described the fact that we need to use regulation, which is the case, we're trying to put on some regulations, we need to use a normative pressure from educational or best practice from users while they are using their own data, and we need to use some technical push, exactly what we said, we observed just before, about the invention of new technologies in order to implement some kind of privacy by design. But what was interesting is that in the model of Lawrence Lessig, there were one factor that was missing, is the market as such. And the market is how we can provide some incentives for all these actors to coordinate and to improve the quality of the architecture. And this is why I thought that, in fact, insurance company was really the best company placed, the best actors, the best stakeholder that should get into this kind of architecture, socio-technical architecture, in order to put the incentives due to premiums, for instance, and try to announce the quality, the labels that they can put on some architecture, on some design, and so on. And that's why we decided to build this kind of project. So the project means 5 steps, in fact. The first one is based on a case study of the credit card system, which is rather fascinating because, in fact, we know that the level of fraud is still high, almost 3% of the exchanges, but the level of trust is also high. That's quite strange, you know. How did they manage to maintain this kind of trust? And so we went into the technical and legal system itself, even until the blockchain system that can be a new way of creating distributed trust architecture. That's a kind of possible way of looking for future innovations. The second one, the second step was the semantic study of the terms of use, you know, the things that you do not read at all when you just enter any application that you click. And the problem is that the way it's designed, as well as the contracts and the offers made by the insurance company on cyber insurance, for instance, we made a semantic study of that in order to understand how the problem is framed, you know, because depending on how we understand the features of the issue of privacy, we can have very different policies. The third one is an ethnographic study based on a campaign of interviews in 4 countries, Russia, China, Hong Kong, United States, and France, in order to understand the perception of risk for people who experience some personal data breaches, you know. The fourth one is the most innovative one is what we do in the Media Lab, is the topological analysis of the controversy based on media and scientific literature, and this is a way of mapping the actors. And then we move to the fifth aspect of our research in order to design the actor system network, I would say, the socio-technical system of stakeholders, in order to understand how they may be in capacity of reacting to major crises that will come. Be sure that it will come. So that's something that is really important to have in mind. So this is not only research for ourselves for the purpose of academic glory, I would say, but what is interesting is that due to this cooperation, we get into a very transdisciplinary approach. This is something we are losing in the academic world. I must notice that, because due to the pressure for ranking, we are looking for more and more pure academic research, and the problem that we are facing are much more cross fields, transdisciplinary ones, and this is very stimulating, and that's a first advantage of this kind of cooperation. And the second one is the fact that due to the cooperation we have with the Data Innovation Lab, we have the opportunity to present our preliminary results not only 2 years later, you know, but every 3 months, you know. And so we have a strong cooperation, a feedback from experts, and they are very good at that. And so there's no such a monopoly of social science expertise from academics. There are many people who are really clever at discussing all that, and this is very valuable for us because we had the opportunity to test our hypothesis and to get back to the field with very new insights. Yeah.
Well, let's hear from your partner. Firstly, 3% credit card fraud is worrying, but at least you've kind of got our backs. But let's talk to Philippe. Can you give us a perspective on how that, you know, on all the research, but particularly that collaborative research has really nurtured the business?
Okay. First, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you know how I could find your gender, your sexual preference, your political orientation without knowing you?
Facebook?
And actually, it's Facebook likes. Yes, with public information. So it means that it's not possible anymore to consider privacy like protecting goods. We need to dig further into this analysis to really understand how we could manage all this data we contribute to create in this new world. And for us, clearly, privacy is a key component of our strategy. First, because we need to provide to our customers a peaceful of mind, and for this we need to create long-lasting and trusting relationship, and privacy is a prerequisite to build this. Secondly, as said by Dominique, we also have this ambition, as we did centuries ago for shipping industry, to create the condition to make the big data economy flourish. So we need to go further, we need to analyze it further, and what we could see from the situation is that today is difficult only to stay on compliance and on the, I would say, traditional privacy analysis, static analysis, because the compliance and the framework, the regulatory framework is always lagging behind the technological change. It means that even if you could do it, doesn't mean that it's acceptable. So it means that today we need to have a more dynamic and a more comprehensive approach, and it's why the Joint Research Initiative is about understanding the behavior, the way our customers are position themselves, and what this Joint Research Initiative brings us is a more comprehensive, a more complete, a more dynamic approach that will help us to understand this change in the future. I would say also that working with experts helps us to avoid blind spots. It allows us also to really look at all the aspects and to, at the end, be more customer-centric, actually. And the last point is that forging this kind of framework is not so easy, because even today, looking at the behavior of customer could push us to the wrong conclusion. So it's really, we really need a rigorous and academical, I would say, approach also to be sure to get the right position. I would say, lastly, to finish, that this analysis of behavior is really at the core of our business, because in the future we need, with our ambition, to be able to better serve, to better define our products, and it will be made with this understanding of behavior. And more broadly, understanding behavior will help us to transform our business and to make it more efficient as far as customers are concerned. And I would like maybe to mention that maybe it will become more usual in the future to have a chief behavior officer, as it was decided and made in Lemonade, a new company in insurance that we have to follow, because I think it's a very nice way to combine social science with real actions. And let me finish, and our CEO mentioned it at the beginning, we have this ethical compass always to have in mind, because in the future, what will be also critical for us will be to be able to address properly this ethical dimension of privacy. And I would say that one of the main challenges we have is about preserving privacy and the right to identity. The second challenge is about also let the people be able to choose, freedom of choice, and also make more transparent our approaches of selection and of analysis. And the third one is to reaffirm the mutualization approach in the era of big data. And this is absolutely compulsory if we want to create this trust, and if we want to bring to our customer all the promises of the big data. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to both of you. Really interesting work. I can't wait to see what happens. Thank you. Right, now I'd like to welcome Christian Thimann, who is Head of Strategy, Sustainability and Public Affairs here at AXA. For him, data and data sharing are crucial subjects, and yesterday actually was his first day on the scientific board. Christian, come up and join us.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to say a few words, because on the one hand, looking at AXA's strategy, long-term growth and sustainability, and on the other hand, being now a member of the scientific board and having spent yesterday a very exciting day choosing exciting project. I'd just like to say a few words on where the combination between research and business is very inspiring. And what I think, which we see, is that we all look at the same subjects, but sort of from different angles. And this is absolutely beneficial. And what it really helps us is that we act early. And I'd like to take up the two examples that Henri mentioned on data and climate. And on both areas, being faced with research, where it helps us to look long-term and at fundamental issues, it's very helpful to sort of take early decisions. And AXA was the first insurance company to establish binding corporate rules that govern data privacy. It was the first insurance company to put out a data privacy declaration.
saying how we treat personal data. And it's the first insurance company that has established a data privacy panel to continue to advise us on this journey. And the same is true for the other subject, which is climate. AXA was the first company to disinvest from coal and triggered a lot of other companies following that path down the road. One of the first companies to disclose the carbon footprint of the investments, and one of the companies now actually involved in helping regulators to define disclosure standards. So that is very interesting for the company because it helps us to act early and be a better company and a more responsible company. And maybe it also helps research because it's a new leverage for research to have a bigger impact in society. It may be a bit of even a faster way and a very, very effective way because, of course, large business affect our economies and societies at large. Because in both instances, these corporate actions took place before regulators act. And that's interesting because insurance is a heavily regulated business. Normally we act, and we always do, upon regulation. But as you can see, there's some examples where we act before regulation, and this is very much inspired by research. And for this, I would just like to express our very deep appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. Now, we are reaching the end of our ceremony. Just one more guest to join us for a closing speech. But before I invite him on, I'd just like to say that it's been a real pleasure being with you all. Thank you very much, Isabel, and the whole team for all the incredibly hard work that you've put in to bring this all together. Thank you to Charlie Druce, who's out there, who's my producer, who I made the AXA Research files with. He's put a lot of hard work in today with Isabel and the team as well. Everybody in this room should be incredibly proud of what you all contribute to the AXA Research Fund, because I genuinely think that the AXA Research Fund is a superb initiative, and I can't commend AXA enough for supporting not only top quality, world-leading research and researchers, but everything you do as well to encourage the promotion and the dissemination of that, and also connecting all the researchers together into this global network. So I very much hope to continue being involved with you and telling more of your stories in the future. So thank you. For now, though, to bring our ceremony to a close, I would like to invite Thomas Buberl, the Deputy CEO of AXA, to join the stage.
Thank you very much. I feel inspired. I feel inspired by the topics I've seen today, and I feel inspired by the courage with which these topics are being addressed. This would have not been possible with the help of many, many people. And I would like to address a few very important thank yous. My first thank you goes to Henri and Denis. 8 years ago, you have had the vision to create the AXA Research Fund and to say, insurance has got a noble purpose. We need to help our customers to understand their risks, to look forward, but to also understand new risks. Without you, without your vision, we would not be here today. Thank you. My second thank you goes to the scientific board of the Research Fund. It is very incredible to me to see the impressive achievement. Over 8 years, 500 projects tackling very important questions for our society, understanding new risks, and not only focused on old Europe, but really broad, looking at the entire world, particularly understanding what does it mean for emerging markets. Thank you very much that you have dedicated your time, that you have put the effort into this to really make this a sustainable and big effort to contribute to society. Thank you. I would also like to particularly thank the researchers that are here today. In my previous life, I've been a researcher for 6 months, so not a good example. But I remember from this time that one is often very lonely. And that's why I'm very glad that you all came here to build a community, to benefit from each other, and to exchange. This community should give you energy to really continue fighting to answer your question that you are desperate to answer. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for putting this dedication into the burning question that you want to solve. And last but not least, I would like to thank Ulrike and her team. The other day, I walked around the campus and I went into their team meeting. And it was amazing to see, yes, they didn't like that I disturbed them, but it was amazing. They were preparing the board meeting you had yesterday. And I could feel the energy and the dedication they were putting into this board meeting. And without you, this would not be possible, and the entire research fund would have not been possible. Thank you so much for all your effort. We have heard today a lot about big data and the connection of it to the technical revolution. For us as insurer, this also has a profound consequence, because our customers give us a lot of trust. They give us data that they do not give to many other institutions. This is also our obligation to see how can we use this data to the benefit of the community. And this benefit needs to go further in the future than paying bills and compensating for a loss that has happened. Data enables us and enables our customers to look forward, to anticipate, and to care for them much more than we used to be in the past. And research, for me, is the leading indicator for our own business. Research tackles the questions of tomorrow, the questions of how does labor look like in the future? What are the boundaries between technology and humans? What does health look like tomorrow? But it also looks at the very ethical questions of data security and data privacy. And since health is very close to my heart, in my previous function I have been the health CEO of AXA, I'm very happy to see that there's also many projects in the health area that have really leveraged big data. And I would like to name 2 of them as representatives for many that are there today, and hopefully many that will still come. The first one is a project by Parvin Tajik, an Iranian woman scientist who works at the Academic Medical Center in the Netherlands. Parvin has been looking at cancer patients to understand how can we optimize the treatment and also reduce unnecessary treatment, something that is very important in a world where health costs are rising and the affordability for treatment is lowered. Thank you very much, and please stand up to see where you are. Another project I would like to mention is the brilliant research by Professor Baraka, the shareholder of the École Polytechnique. He's been working on a very specialized subject on connected stents to really understand how we can monitor our arteries and how we can prevent cardiovascular diseases. Please stand up, Professor Baraka, to applaud you. In his introduction, Henri has asked me whether I want to continue the research fund. This is rather a rhetorical question. I'm a big friend of the Research Fund. I hope you can tell that. And I want to make sure and give my support that the Research Fund will be at the forefront of the questions that are the questions of tomorrow. We do need to support world-class and independent research. We need to foster and increase the community among the researchers, but we also need to talk how we can really improve society. And therefore, Ulrike and team, you will have my support that we really continue this great story of the Research Fund to really tackle the problems of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. You made my day, I would say. So bear with me. It's just a few words of thank you to other people I really wanted to mention today. On top of all the members of the senior management of AXA who are here taking time to show their support to the fund, I would like to thank very warmly Anne-Juliette Hermand and Godefroy Beauvalet who are today with us. And I think a lot of what has been said about the fund is really your job. I'm only here for a few months, so I think we can applaud them. Of course, I could not thank the Scientific Board and Tom for the great welcome and the great work we have started to do together. Alessandra, we're really sorry to know that you're leaving, but we will keep in contact anyhow. And thank you for those of them who could stay today, because I think seeing the projects on paper, the files, the applications is very different from the moment when we actually meet the researchers that we are going to be in collaboration with and in partnership with for the coming 5, 10, 15 years. So thank you for being here today with us to celebrate them. Thank you to all the speakers, all the participants to today's session. I think we learned a lot of exciting new perspectives around the way data is transforming science, and also very interestingly how it resonates with what we are dealing with and what we're experiencing at AXA. So thank you very much. For those of you who are very passionate about the topic, there's more this afternoon, so I need to make a little bit of advertisement for a workshop that will be co-organized with the Data Innovation Lab, with Marcin, and a lot of very exciting speakers around a lot of topics around data, access, legislation, technology, with some of our researchers. So this takes place at 2 p.m. at 23 Matignon, and all of you are invited, even if you did not register yet. And at 4 p.m., those who are passionate about science communication will have the privilege to learn from one of the best science communicators alive, Greg Foote. And Greg, I take the opportunity to thank you for taking us so swiftly and freshly to this very intense morning. So thanks a lot to you. There's a cocktail now upstairs for all of you. Please, the meaning is obviously to have a drink and have something to eat, but first and foremost to engage, to get to know the new researchers, establish connections. We'll be there noting all the calls, the meetings we need to set up. But I don't want to finish and let you go without saying a big thank you to my team who has worked very, very hard for all this to happen. And frankly, they did great, so thanks a lot to them. So now I would like to ask all the researchers from the AXA Research Fund to join me on stage, the scientific board members, and all the members from the senior management of AXA in the front lines to take a picture for memories. Thank you very much.